Hey, welcome to Talk of the Town. This is Jon Adams on a balmy, windy. James, it looks like fall is officially here. I'm like I've said before, I'm tropical, and so it always gets tough for me this time of year because I'm gonna miss the hot weather. You go outside. I was gonna say you go outside to start your car. I don't go outside to start my car. It sits in the garage, but that first blast of cold air that you feel through your sweatshirt or your jacket. Man, it is
Good
it is
stuff.
nuts.
Good stuff.
Wow, what do you do? But you know what? It's here. Although I can tell you that I had a great time this past weekend over at Morehead State. Had homecoming, and I got to tell you, to go back to Morehead State and to see a bunch of friends, some frat brothers, to see some guys that I played football with, some guys that were there back in the 60s and 70s that were part of the fraternity. It was just a really unique experience. And I'm not going to say that I've been all involved with Morehead State over the years, but the times that I have gone back, it's been a real nice fellowship. So, I was thinking about it, and I thought to myself, you know what? I think that we should have a show. We should have a show. I think I should have a show on getting together about what it means when you come back for homecoming and all the different things that go on in this community that tie you to the community. And there were guys that had come back that live, I was going to say live abroad, but live in other places, and they're like, you know what? Fargo has grown, and it's this, it's that, but it still has that hometown feel. So this show, I thought I would lean into the fact that, again, I say before, we live in a great part of the country in a great city, but just leaning into the charitable aspect of Fargo. Because I'm telling you, I went, I made the mistake of going on Instagram for just 2 seconds, and within 5 minutes, I was swept up in the political brouhaha that is the back and forth that doesn't mean anything at this point. And so, like I said, until after the election, I'm not even going to broach those subjects because, you know what, I've just found that people are going to do what they're going to do, and you're not going to sway them. And I've never seen an election that's been so polarizing where it's an either-or situation, where you're either all in or you're all out. And the funny thing is, if you don't agree with the other side, you're reprehensible. In other words, you're a vile, disgusting creature, depending on which side of the aisle you fall on. And it's to me, it's amazing that what happened. What happened that we can't have dialogue now, and that if I disagree with you, I've got to be the ultimate enemy. Everything is so concrete. So anyway, I said, I have a lot of stress in a lot of different areas, and I'm just not going to go down that road. So I started thinking about stuff that happens in our community. And I'll start with Friday. So Friday, I got to go see Aiden Green and the Hayden Horace Hawks play, a good old-fashioned Friday Night Lights football game. And I didn't have a dog in the fight. I know Aiden's family. By the way, he did get the Chris Heisey Play of the Week. The kid is silky smooth. But I remember sitting in the stands. And by the way, Horace has done a wonderful job of cultivating that program. The stands are filled. The student section was hyped. The parents were engaged. But it was interesting because I didn't hear the negativity that generally comes. Maybe because they were blowing out Devil's Lake, I don't know. But it was great to sit in that environment and just soak it up. I was an absolute nobody out there, and I'm just watching. And I sat next to this couple who had a granddaughter that was a cheerleader, and I'm sitting next to them, and we didn't know each other, but we knew that the kids running running around was a real frenetic situation, and that the speakers behind us were always too loud. And I've just learned, by the way, if you're going to go to a high school game, bring some earbuds, bring some ear protection, or bring some noise-canceling headphones. I'm sure you guys have seen me in the area if you see me at all. That's my safety net, is that I wear those things. But I took them off, and we just started talking, and they were from Bismarck. At least I think it was Bismarck. But anyway, they were from out of town. But there they were supporting their grandkids. And I thought, and I told them, I said, is there anything greater than seeing young people do things? Is there, like for them, it would be their grandkids. For me, it was my sons participating. Then as a coach, watching our athletes do things, because you get to see the future. You get to see these kids who are invested in what they do. I don't think they had a band, but anyway, you get to see these kids that are put in work, regardless of what they're doing, whether they're on the field or they had students serving in the concession stand, and then there were parents that were also part of and it just reminded me. I mean, I really did feel uplifted going to that game, and it was one of the things that reminded me of why I stayed here. It's because of that very interaction. I mean, strangers that meet and don't know each other. I think that's the definition of strangers, James. But, people that just meet and you just have a great conversation, And I talked about being from Minneapolis, and they talked about small town. And so it was really a great environment. I think Horace High School has done a great job out there. You should be proud of what you have there. But anyway, it got me to thinking, for this show, I think I want to focus on charities in the area and charitable giving, because, there are a lot of people that volunteer their time to make things happen for people that have less than. We have coaches that are coaching that don't get paid. I've served on boards. I'm currently serving on boards where it takes time and there's no money involved. But, when you do things within an entity, the focus should be on what the entity is about. So youth sports. I find it amazing that people can do things and not focus on what's important, and that's those kids. And like I said before, one of the reasons that I give to the youth thing is because without people in Minneapolis giving to the Parks and Rec for the leagues that I played in, and fathers volunteering their times, and JC's doing great things, I probably would have never made it to Morehead State. But there were people out there that did that. So in that vein, I wanted to cover a few of the charities in town because, number one, I want to give people the information because one of them is the Village Family Services. And we're going to go back, we're going to get to it. But all this is leading up, James, to the fact that I was at homecoming and I got to see a lot of guys. For most of the guys around here, I'm the elder statesman and I'm the old guy. So I get to dispense wisdom and justice and all this different stuff. But to come back to Morehead State and see guys that I went through when I went through the Owls, which we're going to talk about, the Owl Legacy Foundation, but guys that were older than me, the Randy Sullivans, and I see Paulie Wiskoski has joined us, Ford Oliver, a lot of these guys that helped me navigate being up here at Morehead State. So that's going to be the focus of our show, as well as we've got to talk about it, James. The big brouhaha that's coming up at the Fargo Dome. Mm-hmm. I hear they're going to play a little ball game up there, and that's the Sioux Bison rivalry, or the Bison Sioux rivalry. Like I said, I don't know what a fighting hawk is. I've never seen one, and I know what a Sioux is, so I'm going to rock with that. Sorry if anybody's offended, but I think this is going to be a slobber knocker, as they like to say.
Between the Jacks and the Bison?
I said Sue, didn't I?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That was a tail whip in a week or two ago. 2 weeks ago.
You know what? I love it. Bear with me, people. That's right. The Rabbits are coming to town. The Hassenpfeffer. It is going to be. It's a toss-up. I think the Jacks lost some people. The Bison are finding out who they are under Tim Polasek, and so I really think that with the Bison going back to establishing the run, playing fundamental defense, a lot of different concepts that we're used to seeing, there's nothing fancy about their offense. They might throw in a few gadgets, a few misdirection here, but basically they're lining up playing smash mouth football. So on the other end of the break, James tells me we got to pay some bills, but on the other end of the break, we're going to talk Bison football. We're going to talk about the Owl Foundation, the Village Family Services. This is Jon Adams with Talk of the Town. If you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000. Ho! Welcome to Talk of the Town. Back here with Jon Adams. I spaced out for a second, James. We have these TVs in front. You guys can't see them, obviously, but the Weather Channel is to the left, and they were showing the hurricanes, and they were showing these floods and boats getting washed in the houses and all this stuff, and it brought me back to the flood of '97, which we got flooded out, and all the great things that happened. It's amazing the way things kind of flow together, but it instantly snapped me into. I'll never forget we were helping a lady, old lady, an elderly lady across the street, bring her belongings up from the basement, her washer, her dryer, and stuff like that. And it just, watching the FEMA workers and all that, it just reminded me just how great we are as a nation. We get so wrapped up in all this other crap that we forget that during any natural disaster, people come from other areas to help you. So anyway, James, we were talking about the Bison Jacks rivalry, and the funny thing is the Jacks have held sway for a number of years now, and it's interesting because the Bison can dominate just about every program, but the Jacks seem to have their number. And it's going to be another one of those situations where the Bison are going to have to come and be fundamentally sound, cut down on the mistakes. I think that explosive plays are going to be something that they're really going to have to look out for. It seems like the Bison defense is really solid, and then all at once somebody will be out of position. Or, and I was hearkening back to last year because I thought this year Bison tackling has been a lot better than it has in years past, which is going to be key because they've got a running back down there that can tote the rock.
Yeah, to say the least. An incredible running back, Amar Johnson. He's the third string in line of what the Jacks have done the last 5, 6, 7 years now with being able to run the football, seeing a couple of guys playing on Sundays with the Jets and Browns and whatnot, and, of course, the tight ends as well. But, it's going to be tough. 245 yards a game the Jacks get on the ground right now. Amar Johnson, of course, Angel Johnson gets in there a little bit, Kirby Verhees. Those are three guys that are really going to make life tough on the Bison defense. You're down a couple guys right now. It's sounding as though, Dylan Hendricks, unfortunately, not going to be playing. You're going to be down a couple of other guys as well in the linebacking room, places of those sorts. So you have the next man up mentality, and you got to make sure that you're fundamentally sound. You're in the right spot. You react. You don't think, and you wrap up and play through that whistle because this is a tough, hard-nosed Jack squad who, maybe they're not quite what they were the last couple of years. Maybe the passing game isn't as fluent as it has been the last couple of years with graduating 3 or 4 guys, but they're still going to run the ball real well. They still got a couple of All-American type beefy guys up there in the O-line, and they got one that transferred in from Oklahoma as well. So it's going to be interesting there. And on the defensive end of the football, you got some guys you got to worry about, Adam Bach and company. And so Bach, he's a senior this year. Feels like he's in his 8th year to me at this point, and it's going to be a fun, hard-nosed football game for both sides. The Bison trying to get that rock back.
Well, there are a lot. Gronowski, is it Gronowski?
Yep, Mark Gronowski.
I mean, he was always. Even as a freshman coming in, he was solid. So if they get that running game going, and then they can throw off of that play action, that's going to be a long day. But on the offense, what's the running back's name?
Amar Johnson?
No. For the Bison.
Oh, you're looking with the new young man there.
Yeah, the young kid. Well, I like the way
Shamar,
he runs.
Marty Brown.
He runs angry for his size, and I like that, and I like the fit. I like those veterans too, but I think it's going to be a possession receiver game, which I think depending on how they play coverage, Mr. Lance is going to have to come up big. I mean, he's pretty steady, but after you get past him, there has to be somebody else, whether it's a tight end or another receiver slot, that has to come up and make an impact. So I think those are going to be the keys to the game for this week's Jacks Bison game. The Dragons are on a bye. Unfortunately, I don't know what the Cobras are doing. But
Dragons are at Concordia St. Paul this weekend.
I thought the Dragons had a bye.
Nope, they're playing.
All right, well, they're at Concordia St. Paul.
Noon on Saturday on our sister station, The Flag.
Noon on Saturday.
11 a.m. pregame.
You're going to be at that game. I didn't get to
sir.
see any of it. Normally I can catch a couple snippets on Facebook and stuff, but I haven't seen any calls. But that was, that MSU game when they were down there and they had 4 tries at it, I was really disappointed that they didn't put in a heavy package. maybe go under center, and run a fullback dive. I mean, as you know, I'm not a big fan of the read option or any of that shotgun offense, because I think it just happens, the handoff happens, but as a linebacker, you get to see everything that's happened. There's no real sleight of hand when it comes to running that type of offense, Whereas if your quarterback and your running back are closer to the line of scrimmage, and if I'm on the left side and I can't see if you actually handed that ball off, I'm a little hesitant as to start up the field, because I got to make sure that you give it. But a lot of times with these offenses, you can see the give while you're engaged, and now you're going to fight to the ball as opposed to there's not the level of trickery and maybe it's something that the nuance of the game that I don't know. But I thought when they drove down, and let's face it, they had plenty of chances to win that game, which has been one of the things. And I think that the Dragons are at a point where they're learning how to win. I mean, we can look at the victories that they had against the top 8, the top 20 teams, but it's like figuring out how to win. By the way, there was a debate. Does Jack Strand have another year?
Yeah, he's a junior. He's got a year left in him, yep.
Holy smokes. That young man, I mean, he's broken every time he throws a pass, he breaks his own record.
Yeah, well, and Gage Florence is right alongside him now in the wide receiver room. So he's got 260 and counting receptions in his career.
I hope that, he decides to stick around, because as you know, you got to love the game to play in college, because it's definitely a business in addition to trying to get your education, and it can be a time suck. But, I watching it and being in the beer garden, I wasn't drinking. I was basically watching. But being in the beer garden and checking everything out, it was a pretty good atmosphere. Morehead State, and by the way, upcoming shows, we're going to have Pam Grohl on, who's the assistant athletic director, as well as we're trying to get the athletic director. But, when you catch them in between seasons, they're pretty busy people. As well as I hope to get the president on. But it seems to me like there is a change happening at Morehead State. Well, that's going to lead right into where we should have been a little while ago. But I think I don't know if you would call it consistency at Morehead State or what it is, but it's something where at some point during the game, there's going to be something that happens where they go off the rails for a little bit, And I honestly believe that this is a team. It's, you have teams that are comfortable playing with a lead, but I think this iteration of the Morehead State football team thrives on adversity. It seems to me that when they're up, they can't stand prosperity, but when they get down, all of a sudden they just seem to have this tenacious nature about them, which speaks to, how well they're coached. But anyway, I think that's enough. That's enough of Morehead State football. But we got to get to the main topic of the show, which is, in this time we live in. I just heard something that estimates say that this year's shopping, Christmas shopping or retail, is going to be a record year for retail. And I wonder, how can that be? We've had record inflation. We've had rising food costs, gas prices, all these different things that have had happen. But here, as we move towards a holiday season, all of a sudden they're starting to predict that there are going to be record sales, that there's going to be record spending. And I wonder what happened that we went from this deep inflationary period to now all of a sudden people have fallen into a category where they have this money to spend. James says we're up against a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some charitable organizations in the area. If you want to email, you can email at studio@wdayradionow.com, or if you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000. Welcome back to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. I lost it for a second. I was reading over my notes and I heard the guys say, "Welcome back to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams." But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So one of the things that happened at Morehead State University this past weekend was the dedication of the Christensen Alumni Center, and you know, a university is a if you're a student, you want to have the full experience, you know? And like I said, for my time at Morehead State, it was more transactional than anything else. You know, it was about dollars, it was about education. It wasn't about student life, which was way different than when I was being recruited, by the way. There was the burning of the M, which you know, campfire, they had a band, they had cheerleaders, they had the whole 9 yards, but then there wasn't a whole lot as far as campus life when it came to student life at Morehead State. And with the new President Timothy, things have changed where they're trying to be more student-centric. And part of that is this Alumni Center. It is a beautiful building. I want to give a shout out to Kevin Christensen and his group for donating and making this happen because, you know, when you're spending money and you're a college student, you should have an experience to remember. It's funny because a lot of my stories, a lot of my life, good times happened when I was at Morehead State, you know. And I'm very proud to have gone to this school. I'm very proud to say that I'm a dragon. But you know, you look at what happens at Concordia, you look at what happens at NDSU. The level of student support, both during the school year, after the school year, and the level of support that the alumni give these institutions. Because, you know, there's the public sector where you know, the university is going to get money publicly, but also it takes the private sector to really make a university go. And so this Alumni Center is an outstanding tool or piece that is going to allow Morehead State to enhance the experience of the students. So I wanted to give a shout out to the foundation. They're going to be working directly with another foundation, which I've been working with some of my frat brothers to get off the ground, and it's called the Owl Legacy Foundation. And so, you know, people always say, you know, why a fraternity? You know, why do you join this group? Why do you join that group? The big thing is you join because you want to belong, you know? It's just that simple. You know, with football, you join because you're athletically inclined, you love the game, this and that. But I can tell you that when it comes to the fraternity, the way it was laid out to me, it was like, you know what? I do want to be a part of something. And the Owls have had a rich legacy that's embedded at Morehead State. You know, there are a number of buildings on campus that are named after owls that have done great things. And initially the campus was designed to reflect that. There used to be 8 paths leading from the center of Morehead State to denote the 8 members that had, actually they're founding members of the Owls themselves. And so being a part of this organization, we recognized that we didn't want the legacy of giving and the legacy and the history of Morehead State to go by the wayside as it pertains to the Owls. So we got together and we recognized that there were a couple things happening. Like we said, we had a couple brothers that had died, and we recognized that there were people within our own fraternity that may need help from time to time. And so, you know, this spring we thought about it, we put this organization together, and we launched on homecoming. You know, we have a website, we have an app that explains the Owl Legacy Foundation, but basically we have some principles that we are trying to push across along the lines. You know, I talk about positivity and giving back, and at the top of the list is meeting the needs of brother owls and our sisters. But more than that, which I think is a more integral piece, is giving back to the university. You know, the outreach that's going to take place through this foundation. And we recognize that there are students that are going to need help, you know, whether it's economically, whether it's socially, whether it's needing help in different areas, emotional help. And so with this foundation now, the idea is to raise money so that we have a definite impact on athletes as well. We're not going to leave them out of the mix. But the idea is this organization has given to us, and we feel like we need to give back. And so in that vein, we started the program, we started the foundation with the idea that we're going to have a student endowment for student in needs. I know that I was one of those students. I had 2 jobs while I was going to school, and at times there were times when I had difficulty getting money for books. There were times when ramen noodles were the thing, way more than I would like to admit. But there were people that reached out to me and said, hey, we got you, and a lot of those were the brothers that were in the fraternity. And I've never forgotten that, and this weekend, I got to meet a lot of those guys. A lot of the guys that were older than me. You know, I'm a wild guy. I come up from Minneapolis, and this is a total culture shock. You know, it was like being in a foreign country. You know, it just, how do you purport yourself in a university setting? You know, how do you behave within the community? You know, and we've seen that young men come up here and they get in trouble. I mean, we had the Bison kid that unfortunately shot a gun, but you know, those are where organizations like the Owls and fraternities, they give young people a voice. They give them direction and guidance. And so what we want to do is we want to be that direction and guidance for Morehead State, as well as preserve our legacy. So in the coming weeks, in the coming months, you're going to hear about various things that we have going on, because I think it's important. You know, I've said it before, a lot of things I do because people have given to me. You know, people have helped me reach and attain and have a level of success. And so with that, that's the OWL Foundation. But also, as I was thinking about it, there are a lot of charitable organizations, and when I tried to narrow it down to who I would talk about on this show, there was one that stands out because I've used the Village Family Services, you know, for counseling. You know, they have been a mainstay since I've been here more at State, since I came here early on. Okay, and the interesting thing about the Village is they provide counseling service. You know, we hear about people being bullied and parents, how do I get help for my children? You know, all of these different things. And so the Village has done an amazing job throughout the years of being that place where people can go, you know, counseling services, as well as, you know, family. You know, there are a lot of people out there that need family counseling, or they need guidance, you know, and the Villages provide that for a number of years. And so the one thing I didn't know that is new to me is that they also offer classes. You know, the various classes that you can go to when you're there that deal with, you know, business. How, if you want to start a small business, they have classes. If you want to learn how financial competency, they have those sort of programs. And so it's like, you know, when you look at it, for those of us who have navigated and managed to become successful, you know, a lot of times we don't look at the Village, you know, because we understand where to go to use these tools within the community. But I wanted to put it out there to my listeners that this is what makes us great, you know, and the Village is one of those entities, and I'm hoping in the future to have the Village on there on this show, because I think that this is being missed in our community where, you know, there's a lot of talk about taxes, there's a lot of talk about this and that, but there's not a talk about all of these great organizations. And I think they need a platform. I mean, we've heard the city, you know, they all but want to eliminate the engagement center, which, you know, these are necessary entities. Because if we don't have these organizations in place, the people that need them, if their needs aren't being met, then we have to meet them on the other side. You know, we have to deal with the fallout of these people not having an avenue to get their needs met. And so I want to say hats off to the Village Services, and the other organization I'm going to talk about on the other end of the break is Churches United, because they have a number of different entities in the Fargo-Moorhead area. And we've heard a lot about their financial situation, but when I come back, I'm going to talk about the percentage of money that they use that's taken in for to meet the needs of the programs that they have. Because when you hear the number and the statistic of how much money they actually get back as opposed to what they've taken in, we have to ask ourselves, why are they unable to maintain? When we get back, we'll talk about that. This is Jon Adams for Talk of the Town. WDAY, if you want to call in, the phone number is 701-293-9000. Welcome back to Talk of the Town with Jon Adams. I was just giggling because there was a commercial. It was an anti-marijuana legislation commercial on that said, "Don't let North Dakota go to pot." I find that funny because we'll certainly let North Dakota go to alcohol at an alarming rate. We are famous for our level of drinking, as exhibited every time the Bison go down to Frisco for the national title game. But that's another story for another day. But at the other end of the break, I was talking about Churches United. Now, we've heard that they've had financial struggles over the past couple months, and they've secured some funding. But I'm going to read down the list here, some of the things that they do. And at the top, it's safe shelter. And so I've always said that, all churches should open their doors in some way, some capacity to meet the needs of the homeless. That there are enough churches in this community where we shouldn't even have an issue with people sleeping downtown or to soften the blow, they call them campers. I don't ever remember camping being a life or death situation, but we put these labels on there so it's easy for us to swallow the fact that there are people that genuinely every day go to sleep outdoors. But they provide shelters, and safe spaces where people can just rest, you know, and they can get a hot meal. Most of us don't even think about where our next meal is coming from. We don't even think about where we're going to sleep. It's just a foregone conclusion, you know. And I hope that we as a society get away from this thing where people keep saying that, well, the homeless are out there because it's a choice. You know, they also provide, what their program is called stable housing, and this deals with the child aspect of having some place to be. You know, they have these shelters that allow people to, families to be there and basically have a structure. You know, I mean, a lot of times we don't put children in the homeless category. You know, we don't really equate homelessness with the fact that there are children that are living on the streets. You know, but this organization, it's meeting those needs. And I don't know where their funding comes from, but, somebody's got to do the work. For all of us that talk about being Christians, we should be looking at this entity. We should be saying, okay, how can I be a part of this? Whether it's the Village or Churches United, these are people out here doing it. I can tell you, having worked at LSS, it ain't a money thing. I can guarantee you that there aren't people out there working in these organizations that are making a decent wage for what they do. It's a lot of hours, They provide food. Churches United serves a lot of food in a given year. And so, when we talk about what's going to happen to Churches United, let's talk about the tons of food that they serve or give to people in need a year. That goes away. Where do those people go for food? What happens to that segment of our population that rely on Churches United for food and shelter? This is something that we have to take a look at. They also provide counseling services and emotional assistance. They do case management work. They do social work. All of these things in the name of helping move our community forward, helping to move people forward that aren't as well off as some other people are. And so once again, it comes back to, what do we want to be as citizens of the Fargo-Moorhead community? We need to be engaged. We need to be involved. And at the very least, monetarily give something. Every dollar helps. Every dollar helps. And so, with this show, I wanted to bring attention to it because there have been some people that have been railing on Churches United, and I'm just dumbfounded. I mean, all businesses have issues, but it also speaks to the fact that this entity is meeting the needs of people that need their services. And since inflation and COVID, there has been a huge influx. And I bet if you talk to the people who run the organization, they'll tell you they're helping more people than ever before. And the sad part is, in order for them to remain a viable entity, a lot of their programs are going to have to be downsized. Now, the nugget that I was going to tell you, looking at it, 88% of every dollar spent goes directly to the people that Churches United serves. That's one of the reasons that I wanted to feature them, because this is quantifiable. When you want to know, hey, is your money getting to the people that need it? I'm sure the books are wide open on it. I didn't go all deep into it because this wasn't the show that I was going to have, but I thought it's something that we need to talk about, and that we need to get behind these entities that are doing the work. And I'm not going to say a lot of the work that we don't want to do, because you get busy. You know, and a lot of times it's just making sure that your family and your friends are okay. Well, in those instances, we need to be mindful that there are people that are going above and beyond to make sure that everyone in our community's needs are met. And so with that, James says I got about 30, 40 seconds here, but these are the things. These are what's going to make us a strong, viable community for the future, you know? Plus, it also serves as a blueprint for the people that come after us. If we're not willing to give, if we're not willing to model the behavior that allows us to be a great community, we can go south in a hurry. So with that, I'm going to say, hey, you know what? Go Bison, go Dragons. The Vikings have a big game coming up. I'm worried because Detroit has a heck of a running game, but either way, we're going to see what happens. This is Jon Adams tuning off until next week, and as always, stay black.